Sahana vavatu, Sahanau bhunaktu, Sahaviryam karavavahai, Tejasvina vadhitamastu, Ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Chapter 2 is called Sankhya Yoga, topic of knowledge, the knowledge that encompasses the knowledge of all knowledges. So not just any kind of knowledge, but the knowledge that speaks about both the relative world, but also the absolute reality. And let's go into verse 1. Sanjaya Uvacha Tam Tata Kripaya Vishtam Ashru Purna Kulekshanam Vishidantam Idam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha. Chapter 2 is the biggest chapter. All of the subsequent chapters will zoom in everything that chapter 2 is stating. So chapter 2 will be the big picture, and we will go through prakriyas. Prakriyas are methods to understand the big picture. And then all of the subsequent chapters from 3 to 18 will add more prakriyas or methods to understand deeper, to look at it from different standpoints. So whatever we learn now, it's not the final thing. It's a big picture of the whole thing. This is how learning takes place. If you want to understand something, you look at the abstract, the big picture of something, and then you zoom in the details. And like this, you start to learn the parts that make up the whole. So to understand the whole, we have to look at the parts. So therefore, in verse 1, Sanjaya is recounting to Dhritarashtra that Arjuna is sitting down because of his recounting of, in chapter 1, to Krishna, that he's unable to move forward in the war because of all of the damage that will be incurred in the society. All of the loved ones will be killed, and also his own papam will be huge, and he cannot bear that because he will have to be there in the future body of the Arjuna who will be suffering from all of this destruction. So this is Arjuna's vision. This is how he sees it so far. Is it the final knowledge? We don't know yet until Krishna starts to speak to Arjuna and starts to add more clarity about the situation. So here in verse 1, Arjuna, as a result of all of that, unable to move forward, he's feeling overwhelmed. He is, distressed. He is grieving. He is sorrowful, and he has some needs. We don't know what those needs are, but if you put yourself in a situation where you need some help, what would your needs be, for example? In Arjuna's case, those needs would perhaps, we don't know, be to be heard. He just wants to be heard. He wants his pain to be heard by Krishna. So he's looking maybe for empathy. Maybe his need is for, to grieve for a moment of about what is about to happen. Maybe his need is to be supported along this journey. We don't know, but he certainly has needs. So this is the human race. We have certain needs in an environment where we are challenged, and we're just wanting to the other person to hear us so that we can feel supported, and then we can kind of get our bearings straight. We know what to do. So this is just human nature, and this is where Arjuna is at now. And so while Arjuna is overwhelmed and distressed and having all of these needs, calling out to Krishna, to that Arjuna, Krishna begins to speak. So the question is this an effective approach to what is the most effective approach to begin speaking to this kind of a state of mind? So your friend is in high amount of distress. Your child is in a high amount of distress. Your parent or your loved one is in a high amount of distress. And they're communicated their needs. They've communicated or expressed their feelings. The question is, what is the most effective way to begin speaking to them? So what Krishna is going to do is going to poke Arjuna a little bit. He's going to shake him up a little bit. Why? Because the first question that comes out of that kind of state of mind will determine all of the subsequent questions that follow. So if Arjuna starts to ask, oh, why is this happening to me? Why am I so unlucky? Why, is life so hard? Then every other question is going to follow that. So Krishna is going to strategically direct Arjuna in such a way that Arjuna begins to ask different kinds of questions so that he doesn't fall for this victim mode or helpless mode, but rather to ask the right kind of questions, because the first question Arjuna asks is going to then continue forming relatable questions afterwards. So Krishna for now wants to poke him, wants to strategically position himself and have the right kind of disposition towards Arjuna so that Arjuna is able to feel comfortable. And the first thing that Arjuna asks is the perfect kind of question for Arjuna to come out of the situation. And how this will happen, we will see. I want to ask you a question. What is the emotional and mental state of Arjuna described in this verse? And why is it important for Krishna to address it?
I think Arjuna is in a state of being despondent. So in that state, I think Krishna has to, first of all, address the despondency and also kind of challenge him with it to say, look, it's false, and then move from there.
Confused or disillusioned in that state. So important to get him out of that state, because as you rightly said, he will continue in the same train of thought if he is not corrected at this stage. Delusion is what I feel, or a state of total confusion. He feels on one side that what he's going to do is totally wrong, but at the same time, being a Kshatriya, that's his job to do. That is what he's meant to do, and that's where they have all landed up there. So I feel, that's the state of Arjuna, and Krishna has to correct him and remind him, but this is your job. This is what you have to do.
He's been very unproactive all along, and now he's facing death. He chickens out, and now he doesn't want to fight.
Perhaps that Krishna is trying to show that the answers that we're all looking are within us to start with, and that by probing and asking these questions, it's going to draw them out. I think almost like what became known as the Socratic approach.
Right.
So you're asking specific questions and you're drawing the answer out from the student.
So I wonder, is it possible that it's illustrating or attempting to illustrate the problem with being emotionally kind of all over the place? And in order to have Arjuna be in a state of mind where he can receive the message, he has to kind of talk him down and make so that his mind is clear?
Verse 2 and 3 will be Krishna's response to Arjuna's disposition or despondency. So let's see what verse 2 and 3 says. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kutastva Kashmalam Idam Vishame Samupasthitam Anarya Jushtam Aswargyam Akirti Karam Arjuna Klaibyam Vasmagamav Partha Naitatwai Upapadyate Kshudram Hridaya Daurbalyam Tyaktvo Tishta Parantapa. So in verse 2 and 3, Krishna gives a rather different kind of response than we would expect. Because so far, Arjuna seems like an evolved human being. He was thinking about the society. He was very clear about the repercussions that the war will have. So he sounded like a very intelligent and connected human being. And so naturally would think and empathize with Arjuna and say, I absolutely am on your side. And in fact, let me, help you to come out of your emotional trauma so that you can, do what has to be done. So you would kind of, maybe approach it like this. And Krishna says to all of that so far that Arjuna is going through, he says, what is this? What are you doing? Get up. Go and fight the war. This is your duty. What is this despondency of yours? What is this emotional trauma of yours? This is inappropriate. And Arjuna is like thrown back, because the least Arjuna is expecting is empathy from Krishna. He wants to be heard. He wants to be seen. This is what you're doing is not right. This is not how a Kshatriya acts. And the reason why Krishna answers like this is because for several reasons. If you look at Arjuna's situation, he's responding through the eyes of emotional trauma, which is what Michael was mentioning, rather than seeing things as they are. So yes, Arjuna is seeing things through a lens, but the lens is only so small. If the lens were to be larger, then Arjuna's response would have been very different. So because Arjuna's lens is looking through the lens of his grandfather and grandsire and society, and it stops there, he's not able to quite make the right decision. So for that reason, he is kind of confused what is the right thing to be in this situation. The second is that years have led up to the situation. So it's not like, right, for the first time, here's what's happening in front of you and you need to act right now. Arjuna had many years in the forest to prepare, had all his life to infer the kind of consequences this kind of, right, competition between, or the two sides that are undergoing. So Arjuna already had a lot of time to think about the repercussions, what it's all leading up to, how it may turn out, the kind of conflict that may ensue from both wanting the same Hastinapur. He had time to think about all this. And now, when it comes time to act, Arjuna is yielding. He's unable to do what is to be done. He is on the most crucial moments, when he has had the time to think about it all, coming to a point of not acting, which is not conducive for a normal life situation. If you look at, if you kind of think about, you know, having seeing the profits go down in a company, and you seeing the employers or employees not being happy, and something's not honest, something's not quite right, and you had many years to look at this, and now finally the company goes into, a state of liquidity, and suddenly you go, oh, now I'm getting all emotional. It's like, hey, you had all of the information presented to you. You cannot just sort of yield like this. And the third reason is that Arjuna was the only right person, the only competent person available for this job. So just like you, for example, play a role in a society, and a society has a certain expectation of you, not once, but it's on a daily basis, because everyone, in a sense, has some duty to perform according to your strengths and your weaknesses. And so you play a part in a society. So having that part played, suddenly one day you come to a point and you say, I can't play my part anymore. And you say, why not? You've been playing this part for all of this time, as Mina was saying last time. You had all of these previous wars and you did the right thing. And now you come to this war and you're unable to act. What's going on here? So these three reasons Krishna noticed, which Arjuna couldn't quite see because he was looking through that emotional lens. Krishna, through this, again, is slowly, gently poking him. So you have to know how to poke the other just enough so that they get drawn out, the questions get drawn out, the right kind of questions, the right kind of thoughts get drawn out of the other person. If you poke too much, it's too uncomfortable. Person runs away or gets angry with you. So Krishna knows how to gently poke Arjuna in such a way without saying, hey, you're a fool, what are you doing, you little, wussy, get up. He's using a gentler language, but also not too gentle, because Arjuna is a Kshatriya, so you have to use a certain firm language. If you're speaking to a female in a certain position, you have to change your language. So it's not like this universal language with everyone. The language changes according to the person. This is called swadharma. So I have to change my language with my wife as to the naughty child, as to the good child, as to the employer, as to the employee, as to the acquaintance. What Krishna is saying is, regain your composure, Arjuna. This does not befit you right now, what you're doing. Like this, in the next verse, we will see what Arjuna says, and he's going to override what Krishna has just said with a certain trap of philosophizing. So this is, we will see in the next verse how, in order to stay where you are, what we will sometimes do is we will throw in a quote, what somebody else has said, and then we will use that quote to support our standpoint, but it's a trap, it's a deception, and we will see how that unfolds. But before I move forward, I have one question. Why does Krishna's response to Arjuna's distress seem unexpected? And what is the rationale of this?
Yeah, unexpected because knowing Arjuna and Krishna to be good friends, you would have thought Krishna would empathize with him, and whatever he said made sense in a emotional way. Yes, families will be destroyed and all that, so we would have expected Krishna to immediately empathize with him. But the rationale, probably, I would say is, as you said, years of differences between the two parties had already been discussed, and even Krishna went to that extent of going and asking for just 5 villages or a small place. Still, it was not given. So I think the build-up was there to go and fight. Everyone was prepared for it. So there was no reason. And I think the only way to get someone out of, especially a Kshatriya, to get out of that emotional state is to poke his ego and say, you are man, this doesn't befit you. You are a Kshatriya. So maybe that's the reason probably he took the approach of poking him gently.
I'm thinking from 2 perspectives. One, as someone who goes to friends for advice, we also go to friends for comfort. And that's the connection between Krishna and Arjuna for now. So Arjuna is surprised that, hey, you're not taking my side. Instead, you're giving me all this advice to do this and that. And he's pretty shocked about that. Second, I feel like Arjuna is thinking more about himself, like his karma, and he's not seeing the actual gravity of the situation and how many people are going to get involved and their karma and their roles. And that's what Krishna is trying to teach you. Like, when we're beings in this universe, what we do has a ripple effect on other people and vice versa. And you need to kind of broaden your perspective to see that. And that's where Krishna is coming. Hey, I'm your friend, but I also have this other role as a master, as a teacher, as a guru. And that's also my job.
So what Pankaj is asking now is that how do you establish who is the one who's more informed about a situation and the one who is seemingly informed, but not as informed as the other? We call this pramana. It has to be non-contradictable. So when you say something to the other person, he has to follow a certain methodology which you cannot contradict. And the other person cannot find a way to kind of override it. So there's a way to establish who is the guru and who is the teacher. So the guru has a much larger perspective, which doesn't discount the student, but just provides more clarity where the student stands. And when the guru communicates to the student, then the student finds, it's clicking. There is something more than meets the eye. I haven't considered this. So it's not like the student is going to now disagree, because the guru doesn't sort of, provide beliefs, but provides clarity, additional clarity to the student's perspective. So this is the methodology, how the Guru Shishya Parampara works. So the next verse, Arjuna will reply to Krishna, as I said, reiterating why he doesn't want to fight. So let's do verse 4 and 5. Arjuna uvacha katam bhishmam maham sankhye dronam cha madhusudana ishubhif pratiyotsyami pujar havarisudana. And then verse 5. Guruna hatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhaikshyamapi haloke hatvartha kamamstu guruni haiva bhunjiya bhogan ruddhira pradigdhan. Arjuna explains his position and he says, on the other side, I love my grandfather, who is Bhishma, and I love my teacher, who is Drona, and I have reverence for both of them. And they are dear to me. And then Arjun takes it at a larger level and he says, Guruna hatva hi mahanubhavan shreyaha bhoktum bhaikshyamapi haloke. We deceive ourselves by putting a situation into a philosophical context. And then we try to make it sort of sound like some intelligent, advice that we're telling to the other person, that we're telling ourselves, or we find a quote of what someone said without explaining what the quote really means. But you can't really do that because the quote or what someone else said is not relevant to the situation right now. What I said back then, what the scripture said back then, sure, it may be true, but how much is that fitting with this new situation right now? So it's not sort of a black or white approach. The scriptures say, I shall not hurt. Okay, therefore, do not go to the dentist because the dentist is going to hurt you, right? He's going to put a needle in you. So there's always this nuance that you have to account. So what Arjuna says, he says, I've heard that in the Shastra, the Guru is the most exalted. And that killing the most exalted Guru gives you the highest kind of papam in your future, because the Guru is the most exalted figure. He's the one that takes you across the ocean of samsara. He's the one that provides you the knowledge. He's the one that gives you birth, the true birth to the true you, not to the false you, but to the true you. He's the one that, or she's the one that learns and spends their time and does everything to help you, to uplift you. And I'm going to kill this person? It doesn't make sense. So what's happening here is Arjuna, therefore, follows that up and says, for that reason, I shall rather go and beg for alms from people's homes than to kill my own guru. I would rather go from person to person begging for food than do this act, which is unthinkable, because it's going to cost me so much papam, so much unluck, so much pain in the future. I will maybe even go to hell, and I don't want that. Who is this guru? Well, the official definition of a guru is Gukaraha Andhakara Vai Parukara is Nivartikaha. What does gu sound like? When you get out of the ocean, you got a lot of goo on you, right? So when you come out of the ocean, right, you got all of this, goo. I cannot quite see you, right? I have to like open up the weeds. I have to remove those weeds, all that goo from you. So the goo stands for all of that darkness, all of the ignorance, all of the false notions. So who is carrying all of the darkness and ignorance and the false notions? The student is. Therefore, what happens to this goo? You have to go to the ru. Now, what does ru sound like? Kangaroo. Now we have the kangaroo word jumping in. So the ru karaha is nivartikaha. So what is nivartikaha? The dispeller, the remover of. So what does the ru do? It's the dispeller, remover of the goo. So what does a kangaroo do? Have you ever seen a kangaroo? Once you have a boxing match with a kangaroo, they will break every bone in you. They will just totally have a fight with you. They will box you. They will remove not only your face, they will remove that goo. They will totally destroy the false you. Therefore, the ru destroys the goo. So what is a guru? The one who dispels all of the goo, all of the ignorance that the student is carrying, all of those false notions and mistakes and erroneous assumptions, all of that has to go. That's the job of a guru. Now, a guru in this definition can be anyone, can be someone in the mathematics class that is a guru. But when we're speaking in terms of scriptures, in terms of who you are, then the guru becomes one who removes your identity as this individual who you think you are. Therefore, it becomes the most important guru, because every other guru has removed ignorance about things in the world. But the guru, the scriptural guru, what do they remove? They remove the very notion that is keeping me bound to life after life after life. So the guru, in the scriptural sense, gives you limitlessness, gives you infinity. Every other guru gave you limitation. It was a good limitation. You need to know how to manage your finances and how to have a good communication and be relatively successful. But what do you get out of all of that? You get one more life, until the guru comes and removes the final ignorance upon which you can see the final truth as yourself. Therefore, Arjuna says, I'm not running away, Krishna. I'm not being arrogant. I'm not being kind of difficult here. I'm not being, throwing drama. I'm just concerned about my future self. It's logical that you don't kill your guru. Who kills their guru, Krishna? Show me who kills their guru. So in that sense, Arjuna is not trying to be difficult, but that is his genuine understanding in that moment. So the question I want to ask you now is, how do you camouflage your ignorant thinking or your false thinking with philosophizing? Because what this does is it preserves that wise self. We all like to feel wise. We all like to kind of put up a mask of the wise person, right? I'm the wise person. I've listened to many teachers. I've listened to many YouTube videos. I've got many years of experience. I'm wise. I've thought about it. I've inquired a lot. This is the human condition. And to protect that, we will throw certain wisdom on top of a situation to prevent us from seeing what really needs to be done, from doing what really needs to be done, to confront the feelings that are still burdening us. So the way to confront that is by not confronting it at all, just to put a band-aid upon it, because it's much more comfortable. So how do you camouflage something that is uncomfortable with philosophizing?
Essentially, you're taking, like, a person could take quotes from YouTube or whatever and use it to reinforce as evidence. Oh, it supports my contention, when it actually is not. So you're trying to rationalize something that's false.
I'll give you one example, and then you can think of your example. Suppose a mother wants her son to be married or her daughter to be married, but the son is not going out, he's not interested, he's not sort of putting any action. And the mother, she feels one thing, she feels that anguish of seeing her son just pass by these years and not really taking any interest in relationships. But then she says to herself, it's okay, the society is changing, people are different, they're no longer as my generation was. You know, society has their own kind of things that I don't quite understand, which is fine. If that is what she truly feels inside her, that's absolutely fine. But the question is, do you as a mother or a father really feel like that? Is your feeler and your speaker aligned, or the feeler is contradicting the speaker? So rather than saying, oh, you know, it's the society is changing, it's okay, rather than putting band-aids on, what the mother could do, or what the father could do, is say, why do I want this? Why is this bothering me? I have my own life. I come here for my own kind of, my own reasons. I've done my part to my son, to my daughter. I can let them be who they are. Why am I so involved in somebody else's life? What about when it comes to learning? You know, this is too difficult for me. I don't need to study this because it's out of fashion, and Brahman cannot be known by the mind, and therefore why intellectualize it? You know, it's all just too theoretical. This is all just too intellectual. I'm a heart person. I want to go into my heart. And this is all too kind of, discussions and talk. Just give me the knowledge, talk to my heart. And so like this, the person can kind of, just move away from the knowledge and philosophizing how, it's not the right teaching, it's not the right teacher, and they will give themselves reasons like this. I'm not feeling the love from my partner. My partner doesn't love me as much as she used to. He doesn't love me as much as he used to. He doesn't give me as much attention as he used to. She doesn't quite do things for me like she used to. She doesn't quite spend that kind of time that I used to enjoy once upon a time. And then the person says to themselves, they philosophize and they say, it's okay, these things are coming and going. Love comes and goes. It's all just transient. That's what the scriptures say. It's all just transient. It's not supposed to last. So like this, we load ourselves with some perfect advice while not really looking at or confronting what needs to be confronted. Another example is a friend feels envious about another person's success. It can happen. You're two friends together, and even a student can feel envious towards a teacher for knowing so much. And the student then says, yeah, this is very inspiring. This envy, because they're so smart, it motivates me to be like them. Do you think this is the right way to approach? To be envious and to use envy, that feeling of, I want to be like them, and I don't like the fact that they know so much, using that to feel inspired to learn. Do you think this is a healthy approach?
No, these are like excuses to not do your duty, right? These are like escaping from your duty, and you just cover up with excuses.
So you're covering up with this simplistic language and then justifying that it's okay, I can feel jealous because it makes me want to do better. It makes me want to become a better person. I'm motivated to become better because I'm jealous at this person and I want to reach their status. It sounds like you're being motivated, but it comes at the cost of kind of putting them into one box and you're another box. So you're reinforcing this separation. And yet Vedanta is saying all that is here is Ishvara. How can Ishvara be jealous of Ishvara? How can God be jealous of God? It doesn't make sense. So this kind of approach, while it may work, it's unhealthy and it reinforces separation in the individual. Because you cannot truly feel devotion for someone if your devotion for them is in a form of envy. That is not devotion. That is jealousy. That's unhealthy devotion. Proper devotion, proper reverence for a guru, proper reverence for a friend, reverence for your partner is not in a form of envy or jealousy or they're successful, but you're inspired by them. You want their success. You feel happy for them. You want them to succeed. You want them to cheer. You feel happy when they feel happy. You feel sad when they feel sad. This is called mirror neurons, healthy mirror neurons. That means when one person experiences something, me being a healthy human being, you being a healthy human being, you feel exactly what the other person is feeling. This is called you're aligned with what is. If I'm not aligned with what is, then they're here, what they're feeling is cheer, like at a wedding. They're feeling cheer and happy. And I'm feeling, oh, I should be married. I should have a man. I should have a woman. I should have this kind of audience. No, I have nobody in my life. I want to be like them. But on the outside, it's like, right, all clapping. So there's an incongruence between the thinker, the feeler, and the doer. And this costs you peace. It costs you separation. It costs you isolation from the world.
When you're in your 20s and everyone, you and your friends have different careers, goals, dating, it's very easy to fall into that trap. And me and my friends were just talking about this yesterday. So it just hit the spot. So that's why.
Yeah, and also there's a difference between jealousy and envy, by the way. So we often interchange these two words. Jealousy is when there's three people involved or three objects involved. So in reference to, so jealousy is when I feel threatened that I may lose out on something that's close to me because it's associating with something else. So I feel jealous that my partner is speaking to some different woman. That means there's a threat that my partner may kind of, go over there or I may lose it. So there's a sense of threat of loss. When it comes to envy, that is when someone has something that you don't have. So they have something, but you don't have it already, but you want it. So there's a slight distinction between jealousy and envy. Jealousy comes in terms of three things. Envy is something that you don't have, but you want to have. Just like the distinction between empathy and compassion. Empathy, as I said earlier on, is when you feel somebody else's, you're sensitive to somebody else's pains and joys. So it's a shared reality. You have a shared experience with someone else. You're at the same level. You're able to pick up somebody else's struggle. She's struggling, I pick it up. He's struggling, I tune in and I pick it up. Compassion is when you extend your hand outwards, is when you actually do something to help them about what you have picked up. So first comes empathy. So you first pick up what is this person going through, and you don't have to act if the relationship is like that. So you cannot quite act if they're on the others, if you don't have this close relationship with them. But if you do have a close relationship, or it's appropriate to do so, then you go over and you actually reach out and ask them, how can I help you? Is there anything that I can do? I notice that you're going through a stressful time. What can I do for you? So empathy and then compassion is reaching out. So he did philosophize, but most people stop there. Arjuna didn't stop there. He then says, now that I have stated my arguments, is there more to this than I have missed? And that is what opens up the conversation for Krishna to continue teaching him. Could there be more than what I have said? I want to hear your side, your take, your feedback. So they stay with the situation and they want to investigate further. So this is Arjuna. Now in the next verse, we'll see what kind of questions Arjuna asks Krishna. Verse 6 and 7. Nachaita dvidmaf katarano gariyaha yadva jayema yaddiwano jayeyuhu yaneva hatvan najiji vishamaha steva stitaf pramukhe dhartarashtraha karpanya dosho pahata svabhavaha prichami tvam dharma samudha chetaha yachreya syanishchitam bruhitanme shishyaste ham shadhimam tvam prapannam. He finally admits that he is not sure what is to be done. He acknowledges, I actually don't know what is the right thing to do. He acknowledges this out loud, which is healthy because it gives the other person a chance to work with you. So first you have to acknowledge that you're confused, and no matter what the situation is, whether I walk out of the situation, I will be killed, or if I stay and I do what is to be done, still I will be alive, I will enjoy a kingdom, but I will feel as good as dead because all of my loved ones are dead. And what's the point of ruling a kingdom when all of my loved ones are gone? So this is called a no-win situation. Arjuna doesn't see like this is not going to work or like this is not going to work. He's what's called a twilight zone. No matter which way you look, up, down, left, right, which sideways, no way works. And you have analyzed the situation well. It's a very tricky situation to be in because you want to make the best of your situation. You want to move forward, and yet you're in such a tough spot that no way is a win. It's all a loss for you. That's how you look at it. So Arjuna is in this way. And therefore, for the first time, because he's in this kind of a tough spot, he admits and he says to Krishna, Dharma samudha cheta. In other words, my mind is confused. I don't know what is the right thing to be done. I don't know what my duty is. I don't know how to move forward. And this is a very intelligent trait of Arjuna, because what he's doing is he is confused. He's stating he's confused, but he's not overconfident to the point of ending the conversation right then and there and just walking away and saying, no, it's not going to work. This relationship is not going to work. That's the end of it, and moves forward. He says, or she says, right now things are not working, but there is a future and there is a possibility of things working. And I want to see if there is a chance for things to work. Thereby, Arjuna is not falling for this overconfident state of having looked at his situation from a standpoint of an experienced Kshatriya, and now he has closed the book and there's nothing more that can be done. In fact, this is indicative of the kinds of students that come to class. Swami Dayananda once said that there are two kinds of student that comes to class, and it's indicative of what Arjuna is now showing. So the first type is the Arjuna type. So what they say is they're coming in confused and they've acknowledged, I don't know, I've tried many things, and I want to know. Now, these types are a breeze to work with because they're so open and they want to have the knowledge penetrate their minds. They want to listen. They want to have their lives transformed. They actually want to be influenced. These types are the ones that the teacher is going to say, I love my job. The second type are a little bit tougher. They come in confused, but it's camouflaged with a little bit of conceit, a little bit of too much confidence that I've done a lot of things. I've done many books. I've read many books. I've done many meditation techniques. I've done many yoga techniques. I've gotten 10,000 hours of yoga training. I've got all the Kriya yoga practices up my sleeves. I've been doing this for many years, So through that, they stop themselves from receiving further input. So in that sense, there is a confusion. So one does show up in the class, but when the teaching begins, when the ego starts getting questioned or gets attacked, when the subject starts getting attacked, then they put up this facade. That means, nope, I don't need to hear this. I'm already established in the final knowledge. You're just talking about this. I am living it. I've had a student like this, by the way, one time. He said to me, Andre, you're just talking this stuff. You're just talking and talking. I am living this. I'm already there. How do you respond to this? All right. These kinds of people are much harder to penetrate because they don't want to admit that they need help. You don't want to admit that you need help. But everyone needs help end of the day, because nobody has total knowledge. Everyone has something to learn. This is just a fact. So there's no question of walking into any class, whether this class or any future class, and carrying this facade of experience, of having read so many books, spiritual books, by these grand masters who are sitting high, and they've got thousands of people listening to them, and I come from that lineage, and I have, associated with them, therefore I am well established. I meet these types, and it's very hard to make friends with. Arjuna has not fallen for this trap of overconfidence. And then he describes in verse 7, and he says, Shishyate aham shadhimam twam prapannam. So, Krishna, because I don't know what is the right thing to do, what my duty is in this moment, I am your student. I am opening myself to be penetrated by your knowledge, by your view, by your perspective. I want to be transformed. Please teach me. That's a powerful statement. That is basically offering yourself and saying, from this moment on, I allow my progress to go from here to here. That's when you change. From here, teach me. I want to be changed. Now you go like that. So that's the difference between someone that goes through a life of little bit of like this, like a stock market, up and down, and someone who comes to Vedanta and they hear this first time, and then within 30 days, 60 days, they're like this, just going up, because you want this knowledge to change you in a positive way. Bao?
Yeah, I mean, for the first time in the Gita, I think we are seeing although indirectly, the hint of tyagam, the tyagam of ego, the surrender of ego for the teacher.
Yeah. So
throughout the Gita, the tyaga concept will be amplified, I'm sure.
So what Bao is saying is that for the first time, you're admitting that even though you are a man or a woman of competence and skill and respect and pride and honor and accomplishment, for a time being, I choose to put that aside, because everyone plays roles. But a role doesn't mean you quite know how things work. A role is a role of a president, a role of a teacher, a role of a mother, a role of a father. But even if you're playing the role of a mother or a father, it doesn't mean that you know necessarily how to help this child in the most appropriate way. In fact, a lot of the kids today get born in a family which has basically disconnected from sense of religion, sense of ethics, sense of values. It's quite ironic, isn't it, that two people come together and it's very tempting to develop a new little baby. It's very tempting and it's very easy to do that. But just because it's so easy, it doesn't mean that it should necessarily be done until we are ready, until we have prepared, until we have, we know why do we really want this? Is it just to kind of fulfill our needs, our emptiness, or is there a deeper reason why we want to bring another child into our life? There has to be a deeper reason. Okay, so like this, one surrenders their sense of confidence that they know it, and that's how it's supposed to be. And they're opening themselves up to this relationship. And thus, in this way, Arjuna, for the first time, sees Krishna in a different light. He now sees him as a teacher. And now the Guru-Shishya Parampara can finally begin. And what is a Guru-Shishya Parampara? It is a methodology which is expounded by the Guru to the Shishya to provide clarity of what is. So all that is already here and now. There's nothing missing right now in this moment. The Guru just brings out those realities that I've been neglecting because I was too focused on different forms. So in that same way, Arjuna was too focused on his anxiety, on his revenge, on the humiliation that Draupadi went through, the brothers, having spent so much in the forest. All of these were now focused on in my mind. Of the fights that went through yesterday, of the conversations that went on today, of what was said yesterday, what I saw yesterday. So it occupies the mind. Now the student says, I no longer want millions upon millions of forms to occupy my mind. I am tired of letting the world occupy my mind. I want the guru to occupy my mind, because the guru gives me access to the whole thing, which is myself. I have been occupying myself for eons. And what have I gotten from all of that? Welcome, one more birth. For once, I choose to take this journey with total sincerity, total commitment, total dedication, and I allow this knowledge to take over my life, because the knowledge works. The knowledge always has worked, and it will continue to work, because it's evergreen. It's not contradictable. It cannot be negated from any standpoint. And therefore, I want to incorporate this into my life and be an instrument of this knowledge, because the knowledge has its best interest for you. So you're not doing this for knowledge's sake. You're doing this for your sake. That's what the knowledge wants to show. By understanding the reality as myself, who benefits? I do. How do I benefit? I free myself from this limited individual who I thought I was all this time. And how is this Guru Shishya Parampara invoked? Well, it is invoked through Samvada. We said there's 4 communication models. The first is Jalpa. Jalpa is whereby it's just basically passing time, which is okay. Sometimes we need that for entertainment, chit-chat. And there's Vitanda. Vitanda is where both parties are holding to each other's opinion. They're not really into kind of listening to what the other is saying, but just sharing each other's stuff. So they're opposing each other's opinion. And there is Vada. Vada is where there are 2 equals. So you're speaking and each other is enhancing each other's knowledge. And this is a beautiful friendship or beautiful partnership where you're both able to go to play a game or go through some teaching together, and you have a discussion. And at the end of the discussion, you say, you know, I feel transformed. I don't know what it is, but just something in me that's different. I've learned something. I've come in touch with uncomfortable parts of myself. You've talked about emotions. I was not comfortable with that. I've talked about the big picture. You were not comfortable with that, but we brought a unity together. And so both of us profited in some way. And then there is Samvada. This is a conversation between a student and a specialist, someone who specializes in a certain topic. This is a guru. The guru specializes in the knowledge of self, the knowledge of the universe, the knowledge of you, the knowledge of Ishvara, the knowledge of Jagat, the knowledge of Brahman. And the guru reconciles that and shows you there is no difference. There is no contradiction between you and that and this and air you're breathing and the space that you're occupying and Ishvara and Brahman. It's all one reality obtaining as different objects. And the guru has to show you how is that true right now. It's not a belief. It's not something that you have to wait and then once in the future prove it. It's true right now, and the guru points you to what is right now. So understand this. Vedanta is all about what is here and now. Vedanta is not about beliefs. It is about something that I've been neglecting since beginningless time, and it finally, for once in one life, I come in contact with 2 additional realities, which is Ishvara and Brahman. And this is what Guru shows you. Because everyone knows about the individual, everyone knows about the Jagat, the world. We all study the Jagat all day long. We talk about the Jagat. So we have to bring 2 more realities, which is what Vedanta wants to show us. And how is this relationship invoked between Guru and Shishya, which is a Samvada? Samvada means specialist is going to educate the Shishya. It is done every single time we start this class. We say, Sahana Vavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu. In other words, may both, not just one, not just the student, may the teacher also be not only protected during this journey, the next 3.5 years or whatever, but may both of us be nourished by this knowledge. May what the teacher says, may this nourish you, may this transform you in the most positive way imaginable. And may at the same time, the teacher, by teaching, also be transformed. And the reason why it's important for the teacher to be transformed is that both of us are growing. And the more the teacher gets transformed, the more the teacher can pass this on to you. Therefore, you get transformed. the more you supply your comments and I listen and I learn from you, the more I think about and I can give that back to you. So it's a journey of both moving forward. Sahana vavatu, sahana bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahe. Not only do we both get transformed by this knowledge, but it is a journey that's not easy. Therefore, may we both make and strive for this journey to take place together in the hardest times, when you don't feel like coming, when you think it's just heard the same things over and over again. May you come to a place and say, there is more to this, because the teacher changes. The teacher may be one style in chapter 2, but will be totally different style in chapter 3. So if you don't like style in chapter 2, it doesn't mean that the teacher will be like that in chapter 3. And if you don't like chapter 3, it doesn't mean the teacher will be the same by the time you get to chapter 16. So in this way, may we both be productive and make the effort to learn as deeply as possible and reserve the time throughout the day to think about what is being said. Ma vidvishavahe. May we not be encountering obstacles in our life. What kind of obstacles? 3 kinds of obstacles. There is adhyatmika. So suppose that you're kind of distracted and you're trying to focus, but you're unable to because of some things that went on in the day. There is adhibautika. Adhibautika is environmental obstacles, such as noise pollution, such as the air quality, such as the food, right? All of these things can impact your growth. So may these potential obstacles be removed so that I can maximize the kind of input that comes into my mind, and so I can integrate it deeply. And there is adhidaivika. Adhidaivika is even if you are not distracted, that means your adhyatmika is sharp. Even if your environment is clean and conducive, that means your adhibautika is ideal. Still, sometimes there is a dynamic of the class which makes us not quite digest as we did the previous week or as we will the next week. So sometimes there's a dynamic of the whole class that contributes to lack of assimilation, or the knowledge is not going so well, or it's going much slower, or it's going too fast. So also let this obstacle be removed so that it can be just the right environment for this knowledge to take place. So in this way, summary, Arjuna states 2 questions to Krishna. And what are these 2 questions? That start the teaching. So after everything Arjuna has stated, all of his objections to why he should not fight, he finally admits to Krishna, I do not know what to do in this situation. Therefore, dharma samudha cheta, what should be done in this specific situation? Right now, between me and this, between you and this, what is the most ideal thing to do right now? So he's uncertain of his duty. This is a situational problem that Arjuna wants to answer. The second is yat shreyaha syat nishchitam bruhi tat me. So directly translated, tell me definitively what is ultimately good for me. What is the best thing for me? So what Arjuna means by the second question, this is the fundamental question now. This is a much bigger question. He says, because this is a no-win situation, even if I solve the problem, that means situational problem, even if I solve that, I'm still not fulfilled. So what he's saying is, this is a no-win situation. What is the highest purpose of life? Even if I do all of this and I fight and I do my duty, then what? I'm still dissatisfied. My eye is still dissatisfied. So what have I really done? I've just changed, I've just sculpted the world. I've just changed the world. But who's still here? I am. Is that I satisfied, content? No. So what will give me the final fulfillment that no matter where this I, whoever the I is, no matter where the I goes or finds themselves, there is contentment, there is fullness, there is fulfillment, irrespective of what happens in the world, which should be relatively resolved because the situational problems do demand your attention. But either way, what Arjuna wants to say is, he's not a nihilist. What is a nihilist? A nihilist is someone who turns the world as an abstraction. I don't want to participate in the world. The world is, not, conducive for spiritual growth. The world is, denying me from my, my spiritual studies. My wife is a problem. My kids are the problem. My job is the problem. Money is the problem. House is the problem. This is not what Arjuna is. He says the world is important. It is required for my, my security, for my relative pleasures, but I'm not here to kind of take the world out, because there's no question. What are you going to take out, by the way? All that is here is Ishvara. Are you going to take Ishvara out? How? How are you going to take Ishvara out? Can't do it. So this is what a nihilist is. He takes the world out. She takes the world out because there is a belief that the world is an obstruction to my spiritual studies, when in fact, the world is never an obstruction to your spiritual studies. What really is an obstruction is my attitude about the world. And thereby, Arjuna then says, what I am, Krishna, is a spiritual seeker. What is a spiritual seeker? Well, a spiritual seeker is the one who has gone and seen the limitations of the former 3 stages of life. And what are those 3 stages of life? First of all, there is Artha. What is Artha? Artha is everyone is born, and we all see people looking and surrounding themselves with things that will give us security, job, house, careers, like more careers, more education, a bigger family, one more child, right? More prestige. So this is very important because it gives you relative security in life. Now, when it comes to kama, kama is delights and pleasures. So when you have security, what do we want to do with that security? What is a natural step that you want to do after you have security? Do you just kind of just leave it there? You have a big house? Or do you want to maximize the pleasure that you get out of your house? Maximize the pleasure that you have out of your partner or your children. In other words, you want to now make delights into your life. And this becomes a complex, I tell you. Why? Because 50 years ago, we didn't have spas. We have spas today. You know spas? Massage spas and pools and so on. So now you say, you don't go to spas? What's wrong with you? You're so out of fashion. Or, a new fashion comes into place. And you say, oh, you're not wearing this. You're still wearing old traditional clothes. You should be wearing the latest skirts. But that skirt is going to become totally out of fashion in only 20 years. Or they say things like, oh, you went to France, you went to Bahamas, and I went to the local forest. Oh, you should go out there and really get, into the world. So we turn kama into another complex, and it becomes now entangled in your life. You see? So kama is just there to help you so you don't lose your sanity. It's there to help you relatively with some hobbies, with some delights, but not as this form of turning it into another complicated phenomena of, identity and chasing for more kama, because it can just become the end of life. And then there is dharma. Dharma is where the person recognizes, in order to have my artha and my kama, I cannot step on other people's toes because there is a cost for doing so. I could, but I have to carry the guilt and the shame of having done this and not having the creativity to go about it in an honest and fair way. So there is a cost of confidence in the future, and that confidence will become an obstruction to your happiness in the future. And finally, Arjuna sees now the first 3, my security, my kama, and my dharma are already there. I'm already a prestigious warrior. I'm already a dharmic person. I've already all of the accomplishments in the world. I'm one of the best archers. I have 4 incredible brothers. I have Indraprastha. I have hardworking brothers who are all successful in their own right. And all of this is feeding me my own confidence. So Arjuna is a kind of woman or a man that has absolutely everything in this world. There's nothing you can give to Arjuna anymore. He's got an amazing wife. In fact, he's got, what, 2 wives, right? Subhadra and Draupadi. And he's got all of these things. And he recognized, despite having all of these things, I'm still not quite fulfilled. There is something missing. What I'm really seeking is freedom. And what is freedom? The name for freedom is moksha. Moksha comes from the word munch. Munch means literally freedom. Now, Arjuna may not have explicitly stated freedom, because a spiritual seeker doesn't say, I want freedom. They say things like, I want to kind of, what's the point of all of this? You know, there has to be more. They don't quite use the words like, I want moksha, I want liberation, I want enlightenment. They don't use these words, but they're still trying to communicate it to the best of their abilities. So this means that you don't want security. Look at this. This is an inquiry. Do you want security for security's sake? Why do you want security?
To feel safe and fulfilled and happy.
Yeah. In other words, I want security to get rid of that constant, insistent need to feel secure. I want security to be rid, to be free of that concern of not being secure. Why do you want pleasure? Why do you want a desire, to fulfill desire? Because as long as the desire is on me, it bothers me. Like a mosquito bite, you want to scratch it, you want to get rid of it. So in other words, I want to pursue pleasure, not for pleasure's sake, but when I fulfill that pleasure, what's going to happen? I will be free of a desire of that kind of pleasure. You understand this? Why do people keep on going to new relationships all the time? All the time, like just new relationships. Because I want to be in a relationship, because when I'm in a relationship, that desire of being in a relationship, I'm free of. That desire is no longer on me. Why do I want dharma? For dharma's sake? No, I want dharma because I know that if I don't follow dharma, then what's going to be on me in the future? Pain. And I don't want to be having that pain. I want to be free of pain in the future. Therefore, I will follow dharma because it is for my good in the future. So like this, everything that you and I do is never for the sake of security or pleasure or dharma. It's always for the sake of being free of the pain that it will incur, of something on me something being on me that will make me not free. And I want to be free of that. Moksha doesn't mean that one is now becoming a nihilist, that there is a world to discard and people to divorce and move out of home. It's not this at all. This is this may kind of be said in some traditions. This is not what moksha is. It never was about being single and never being in a relationship again. And you have to now be a sannyasi, otherwise there's no, and you're doomed. You have to be alone. You have to go to vanaprastha in a forest, and this is the only way. This is not what Vedanta says. It never has said it, because we all need a little bit of artha, security in our life. Without security, you're constantly concerned and worried. Where will I get my kind of my security from? Karma. If you're studying 24/7, you go cuckoo because you're just doing the same thing. So we need a little bit of what do you like to do? Knitting, programming, soccer, singing, dancing, whatever it is. It helps you. It sustains your emotional well-being. Dharma. Dharma means that my well-being is dependent on other people's well-being. Because if other people are unhappy and they're related to me, then that indirectly affects me. So this means it's in my interest to take care of my environment relatively well. So 99% of us people think that dharma is the last stage of life, and that is fine. And it can also become another obstruction in life. How so? Well, if you are highly ethical, what can happen? The person can become a little bit conceited or arrogant. Why? Because they will say, I'm already following the highest stage of life. I cannot be educated any further because I'm already following dharma. and dharma is the highest stage of life, and thereby, you can't teach me anything. So in that sense, the person can close themselves off if dharma becomes the final stage of life. A second mistake or potential of turning dharma into the last stage of life is you become unapproachable because your standards of ethics are so high. And since few are following those ethics, that means no one can come into my circle anymore because people are using, swear language a little bit here and there, which is okay, right? If it's too much, then you can make a decision. But suppose they kind of use a little bit rude expressions and it's not quite keeping with your dharmic view, then you close yourself off and become very isolated because the person is just kind of extremely dharmic. The third danger of turning dharma into the last stage is that the person can become highly unhappy, which is ironic because dharma is supposed to make you happy, isn't it? Following the laws, doing the right thing. But suppose the person doesn't have picture of the larger order of Ishvara. What happens is that you start to do good things in this world and you're following and you're being a good person, empathetic, reaching out, compassion. You're doing all of the things that a saint does, but you realize that the world is not compensating you. And then you see these people, whoever they are, and they're getting their ways, cheating, taking shortcuts, and they're getting it all. And you compare yourself to this other person, the guri that you are, and you see them and you say, what kind of an unfair world is this? I'm doing all I can, I'm being honest and good, and I'm having all of this hardship coming to my life. This is because the person hasn't understood what dharma really is and hasn't accounted the larger order. That person who is taking shortcuts, they may be getting away with it for now, but what you don't see is going to manifest in their life somehow, and you won't be there to see it. Okay? Now, in the next verse, Arjuna will reiterate that he cannot figure it out. What does Arjuna mean by finding himself in a no-win situation?
Every single avenue of action that he could possibly take, he sees as fruitless. There's no point to it because it's just going to make him feel unfulfilled in the future for all various reasons. So he sees the limitation of any action.
Good. So he's taken the first three stages of life. Kama he's got, Artha he has, Dharma he's following, and despite having all of those prestigious accomplishments in his life, he still finds no way to be fulfilled. Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnam eva vashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shantihi.